Good evening, this is your AI host, Jay. I'm here with the automatically generated Journato evening headlines on June 27, 2022. Crisis hit Sri Lanka just days from running out of fuel. Scientists link increased risk of early death to a simple test. The Independent, this quick 10-second test can measure if you are at high risk of dying in next decade. Express, this 10-second test could measure your risk of death, study says. BGR, scientists say inability to complete simple at-home test is linked to increased risk of early death. The Independent, inability to stand on one leg for 10 seconds later in life linked to near doubling of death risk. Sydney climate protests, activists block streets and harbour tunnel. Rudy Giuliani, shop worker held by police after ex-Trump lawyer slapped on the back. Sky News, worker arrested after slapping Rudy Giuliani on back, calling him a scumbag for Roe decision. The Independent, Rudy Giuliani slapped on back over politics following Roe decision. The Washington Post, Rudy Giuliani smacked on back while campaigning on Staten Island. Vladimir Putin could be toppled in secret plot by Inner Circle, ex-CIA chief claims. The Independent, Putin and the power of his personality cult. G7, Lizzo and Tango, Monday's best photos, news. Beijing chief says city to maintain zero COVID policy for next 5 years, before time reference removed. Sky News, alarm in Beijing after announcement zero COVID policy may last 5 years. The Guardian, COVID in China, size fraying relationship with the middle class. Financial Times, census delete discussion of Beijing's future COVID control. The Independent, in Beijing, COVID zero can unexpectedly ruin your weekend. Boris Johnson News, live, PM insists he is not worried by Tory leadership plots. Let's call the overturning of Roe versus Wade what it is, state-sanctioned forced birth. The Guardian, adoption is not an alternative to abortion. My pregnancy was harrowing and I wanted my baby. iNews, with Roe v. Wade gone, reflecting on the abortions we didn't have. The Washington Post, women must be allowed to defend abortion as a sex-based right. The Guardian, how younger Americans are reacting to end of Roe. COVID, UK in fifth wave already, as experts warn summer events will see infections surge even higher. The Independent, COVID an inconvenience rather than life-threatening for many now, says WHO. Sky News, current COVID rules in Scotland, what happens if you test positive and symptoms. Daily Record, most infectious COVID variants is Omicron fuels rise in UK cases. The Independent, fifth wave of COVID has begun, experts warn, with fears for summer disruption. Japanese told to turn off lights to save energy amid Tokyo heatwave. The Guardian, Japan tells business and public to save power to avert Tokyo blackout. Financial Times, Japan, millions told to turn off lights as Tokyo heatwave sparks power supply fears. Sky News, weather tracker, Japan swelters as heat dome pushes up temperatures. The Guardian, Japan urges millions to turn off lights to save energy amid heatwave. Letting Russia win in Ukraine would be absolutely chilling, says Boris Johnson. The Guardian, G7 summit latest, Boris Johnson insists price of freedom is worth paying as he urges world to stand up to Russia. The Telegraph, UK will give £10 million to rebuild Ukrainian railways to help export trapped grain out by train. The Independent, UK's Boris Johnson, cost of Russian victory in Ukraine is too high. Reuters.com, Boris Johnson urges world leaders to hold firm on Ukraine. NATO increases forces on high alert from 40,000 to more than 300,000 amid Russia threat. Zelenskiy calls on G7 leaders to help end war in Ukraine by winter. The Guardian, Ukraine war, Zelenskyy says he wants war over by winter before conditions make fightback more difficult as G7 leaders reaffirm their support. Sky News, live updates Germany's Scholz, West want torpedo G20. The Independent, Russia-Ukraine war, G7 pledges to stand with Ukraine, for as long as it takes as Zelenskyy calls for air defense help, live. The Guardian, G7 leaders vow to support Ukraine for as long as it takes. Ukraine war, missile strike on shopping center with over 1,000 people inside in city of Kremenchuk, Zelenskyy says. Sky News, Ukraine war, 1,000 civilians inside shopping center hit by Russian missile. The Telegraph, crowded Ukraine shopping mall with more than 1,000 people inside hit by missile strike. The Independent, Ukraine war, Kyiv attacked by Russia for first time in weeks is 1 killed and several injured in missile strikes. Sky News, Russia strikes Kyiv hours after Vladimir Putin rushed to Kremlin. This was all for the news. Thanks for listening. Please do not forget to like and subscribe.